The most brutal schedule that I do normally is when I shoot with athletes, or I used to be when Leo Messi, the football player, soccer player, was playing in Barcelona. I used to shoot most of his commercials, and I shot with him more than 50 times throughout my career. With this guy, you have to be literally on the minute. It's literally on the minute, and you count 5 minutes for one shot, 3 minutes to move on, 5 more minutes for the next shot, 10 minutes if it's a very complicated shot. But you can hit these times only because you have 1 day rehearsing.
All right. Hi, Ferran. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So if you want to just start off by just telling us a little bit about where you grew up and what your childhood was like.
I was born in Barcelona, Barcelona, Spain. I still live in Barcelona, and I had a pretty normal childhood. I mean, I was a very playful kid, and since very early age, I developed like an interest about images and photography. I remember my dad gave me a photo camera, which I started playing. It was a point and shoot camera, very straightforward. It was a Berlisa. I think it was a German camera, and all automatic. And I was just having fun, and then I would take to develop the pictures. Then I will have the pictures and everything, and it was kind of fun. And later on, my dad get a Super 8 camera. And I remember going on vacations, and I became, my dad was the person who was filming, was the guy filming. But with time, I would get the camera and do my takes and everything. And my dad, I think he saw me just doing that and enjoying that much. And he decided, okay, you're going to be the cameraman. And then I became the cameraman for the family, basically. And I remember editing, because at that point, obviously, we all had VHS videos, and I don't have any access to any professional or whatsoever facilities. I was probably 12 or 13, 14. And I remember having 2 videos, the camera plugged, and playing with editing with VHS. Cutting. It was a linear montage, obviously, because we didn't have computers at that time. But with time, and I mean, I was 15 by that time, I managed to buy like an audio mixer, very simple audio mixer with maybe 2 channels or 3 channels, something like that. And I was playing some music live, basically, according to the images I was seeing, trying to sync the climax with counting the seconds, and it was fun. It was I had so much fun with that, and I was in charge basically since I was a kid to do the edit of the vacations of the family or the events, basically.
And did you grow up around other filmmakers? Like, did you know anybody that made films?
Not really. I was probably the first in the family to be attached or to be in love with films. I mean, my parents loved films, basically watching movies and stuff. But maybe they introduced me in some way to watching films, because I used to watch all the famous films from the 80s. Jaws, Goonies, Back to the Future, and also the classics. I mean, my dad loved the classics, and I used to watch Errol Flynn movies and David Niven, all these big names from the 40s, the 50s that probably my classmates, they didn't know.
I beg your pardon?
But I know the name. I knew the names because I asked my dad or my mom, who's this guy? It's David Niven. Oh, who's this guy? He's whatever, Marlon Brando. So, okay, interesting. And probably I developed the love of movie making at that age without knowing. It was something that it was natural on me, just watching movies with my parents. They didn't do any work related to movies. I mean, my dad was one of the pioneers in computering in Spain, and my mom was a secretary. So I guess I was the first one.
Films. Do you remember like the first film that you kind of watched where you were like inspired to think like maybe I can do something like that one day?
No, to be honest, I couldn't name one film. It would be hard to name only one film that inspired me, because it was probably the combination of it was something that developed throughout probably years and years and years of watching films since I was a kid. And I don't know, it was it was a mixture with these old movies I used to watch, with John Wayne movies, or
What did you say?
the classics, Marlon Brando movies, and also a mixture with the movies I used to watch with my friends, was Back to the Future or The Goonies or Gremlins, or these hits of the 80s that really inspired me, probably.
Cool. And then in terms of like your first job that wasn't film related, did you have like a job where you're like delivering papers or worked at a local store, or like what was your first kind of experience working?
My very first job was working for Telefonica. Telefonica was the phone company, the only phone company in Spain at that time. I don't know how you call it in English, but the guy who's with a microphone, with this, answering probably like 300 calls a day or 400 calls a day. It was something. It was something basically that the use I got for that was basically, with that money I made, I paid for my filmmaking school, basically. So it was worth it, basically.
Okay, cool. And then you went to film school, did you say? Do you want to just talk about like how that went?
When I finished high school, I decided to go to college, and I started studying history of art, which was very interesting. But there was particularly the part where we were studying the moving images, basically the history of cinema, how it was made, and the first films, which basically drew my attention, and I completely fell in love with that particular matter, and I said to myself, well, that's exactly what I want to do. I mean, I'm studying churches and Roman Empire and Greek. That's all good, but really, I really enjoy the movies and the history of movies. And so I was basically at the second year of college when I decided to basically move, to drop history of art and get into filmmaking school. I spoke to my parents. It was a very expensive course. It was 4 years, and it was very expensive every year. So basically, they couldn't afford. Say, listen, if you really want to do that, because it was a risky bet, to be honest. I mean, at that time in Spain, Barcelona, I mean, filmmaking was it sounded a little bit like a hobby and not like a real job. So I think my parents were somehow concerned, but ultimately they respect me. They said, if that's what you want to do, go ahead. But we can't pay for that, at least the whole thing. It's super expensive. So you will have to get a part-time job. And then the rest of the time, I was going to the filmmaking school, and I really enjoyed it. It was, as I said, it was worth it because it was exactly what I wanted to do, and all what we were learning was amazing, was incredible, was everything about movies, and it was like, well, I'm basically I'm learning something that is incredibly fun, and I didn't see that at that time like a work opportunity, because it was more like studying history of cinema and how it was developed and created and made at the very early stage. But with time, I really considering, okay, let's try to get into this world. I mean, it's super interesting.
And then at film school, did you create any films, or did you do a bunch of different roles? And like, how did you find the first AD role?
In that filmmaking school, you could study production designer, photography, producer, and director. That was basically the four areas you could study. So I focus on directing. I did a few short films, and I tried a lot of stuff in that films in terms of work. I tried prop master, I tried ADing, I tried spark, even grip. So basically I tried all the areas. I couldn't tell you that what fascinated me was ADing. I mean, at that time, my brain was pointing towards being a director.
Do you want to explain a little bit about the role of a first assistant director?
Basically, the role of a first assistant director is accomplish the vision of a director with the most efficient way in terms of money and time. I would say you have to get what the director wants. You also have to get it with being the most efficient in terms of time, and basically also in terms of money, because time is money in our industry. So it requires a lot of planning, lots of logistics to make his vision happening in the most efficient way. So that's basically how I define my work.
Cool. And how did you get those first jobs in the industry?
It was probably in the first year already, or second year in film school, that I had this classmate that he was already working in video, in the VTR department, in commercials, and he said, "Listen, and we're looking for people in my shoot. We're looking for people basically to stay all night, keeping the space reservation for the trucks when they arrive." So I say, "Oh, okay. So I mean, so that's something. That's a good entrance. I mean, I don't know if it's a good entrance, but at least it's an entrance to this world." So I started working, just keeping the space through all night for the trucks when they arrive for the shoot. So basically, if they were shooting in a house in the street, I was there with a lot of fences, like metal fences. And every time a car left the space, I would put a fence in the place. So another car left the space, I put another fence. So basically, I was saving the space left for the cars when they're leaving to their homes and everything. I was cleaning the street for the trucks to be able to park. And probably this is the lowest position in the film industry. I can't think of anything lower than that, than being the night before the shoot, and when the shoot arrives, you leave, basically. So, but at least was something related to film. And I did that for good 1 year. And I started talking to the production managers and the location managers. And I was letting them know that, listen, if you're short with people, although I spend the whole night keeping for the space, I love to stay and I love to help in whatever you need. And that was the way I got into basically working in shoots. And I was a runner or a PA. I was basically two hands willing to help in whatever I came up. And with the time being a PA and a runner, I let the production managers which I used to work with that I love to try ADing when you try it in, you really start from you start as a trainee. They used to tell me, okay, we'll talk to the first AD or the second AD in case the positions are covered, but in case they need a hand, you'll be the one from production crew. You'll be the one who will be helping them, and that was the way basically. And with the time being a trainee AD / runner, because I also worked for production, I started moving into AD's department. It wasn't something like from one day to the other. It took me probably like a good year to move from production to AD department. But I loved it. That was the way I became an AD.
And were you kind of like shadowing these other first AD, second AD guys and kind of looking over their shoulder and kind of seeing how it all worked?
I mean, basically our job, or at least in this industry, are specifically a job that you learn by working, basically. And whatever you learn in school, even nowadays, whatever they teach you in filmmaking school, in case you're studying ADing, is something. But when you see on set, it's a very different thing. I mean, it's also professional, also structured, that you only learn by basically doing it. And that's how probably most of ADs learn, just by working, doing mistakes. Think about the mistakes you've done. Think, how can you not make that same mistake again? At least myself, I put a lot, still nowadays, I put a lot of thinking in what I do, and especially thinking back what I've done. Say, okay, how can be done better? Or how can you, if something that happened again, how can you turn it the other way? Or how, this is basically the mental process that at least I do. It's like a digesting what you've been done and analyzing how can you be better at that. And I was shadowing and basically looking carefully how they move, how they talk to the crew, the other ADs when I was a trainee. Even the bad ADs I used to work with because they hire me a lot of ADs, good and bad ones, and even the bad ones, which I'm trying to see what they're doing bad and what I would do instead. So yeah, that's basically how I did it.
Do you want to just describe the process a little bit? So when you first get a script and then you have an initial meeting with like the producer, the director, and maybe the director of photography is there, and they kind of have their shot list or their storyboards, and they're asking, like, is it up to you to say, like, this is how much time you get for each shot? Like, are you there to break it down and kind of schedule the shoot?
There's sometimes that the project, especially it's a big project, I'm speaking in terms of commercials. If it's a big commercial, they call me probably 15 days before or maybe 10 days before my starting day. Sometimes video chat, or sometimes I go to the office if the director is already there scouting. I meet him or her. We sit down and we talk about the project. He probably, at that time, the boards are not there yet. If they have some boards, there are agency boards, which are not the director's boards. And the agency boards are more of reflecting an idea of what the agency wants. But then there's the director. What he does is he gets those boards and he puts his vision on them. And according to the locations he's seen or the shots he wants to do, and basically he redraw the boards. So they tell me what they want to do. They say, hey, listen, we want to shoot that in all of this in these 5 or 6 or 10 days. What do you think? And obviously, it's a very wild guess because it's the project is it's such an early stage that you cannot tell for sure if it's going to be right or wrong. I mean, you have to trust your instincts. Say, okay, it's 2 days in studio, 3 days in studio. Yeah, it can fit, or maybe it's okay. We have the weekend to shoot the roads. We have to shoot 3 houses, and we also have to shoot whatever studio. Okay, we can structure in that sense. We can leave the studio for the final part. We can we have to shoot the streets and the streets and roads on the weekends because of the permits. So that's basically my work at this early stage. Then I'm off the job again, and then I'm getting back in probably a week later or 10 days later when everything has been more digested. Sometimes based on instructions that I gave or directions that I gave, also based on location permits or actors availability or streets availability. They do a plan, a very rough plan, and then my job when I come into the job is really define the plan and make it more with a more sensible structure. That would be my job.
Yeah, once you get like the shot list and the basic plan, and then you're on set, and then things are like they get 10 minutes to do one shot, or depending on how long you schedule it. Is that how you go throughout the day? You're like shot by shot?
I break everything down in days. Normally, the average time I count for a shot in commercials, I insist, is probably between 30 and an hour, depending of the complexity of the job, of the shot, sorry. Obviously, when you're shooting car commercials, it's a different thing because you can see a lot of shots with a lot of draws with a wheel or a logo or a front grid or a rear mirror. These kind of shots are a different thing because you normally get it with the arm car, and while you're driving, you get a lot of stuff much quicker than a proper shot with a dolly, tracks, actors. Is a different thing. So the way you time a car shoot is very different. The way you time a normal shoot with actors.
And from experience, like what kind of time frames do you get for like a basic car commercial?
Time frames meaning how many hours it lasts a day, or what do you mean?
Do you do like normally you do like a 10-hour day, and then depending on locations and like you kind of try to get in and get out within that day, or do they have like obviously depends on the budget and what kind of scale it's at, but like a 1-day car commercial shoot, like is that kind of enough time to get things done?
There's never enough time to get things done in commercials when you shoot. There's always a rush. There's always, you're in a hurry constantly. But that's the fun of it. I mean, that's what makes our life more interesting. And yeah, normally a day, at least in Spain, it's 12-hour day. You have 1 hour lunch, and then you have a chunks of 6 hours since you call the crew until you break for lunch, and then 6 more hours normally, or 5 more hours. If you're shooting purely driving shots, it's normally that day you shoot in a different locations. When you got the arm car, which is a very expensive toy or piece of machinery, you're not shooting only one place. You're shooting in for instance, you're shooting countryside roads. You're shooting in different sections of roads, and you have to move along. Normally you have a big base camp, and then you take with you the equipment you need in the specific points, which, for instance, a car shoot would be the arm car for sure. You bring the hero car. What we call the hero car, the car you're filming. You also take some production vans that you would need and to do the blocks and help assist the police, some blockers, and to block any auxiliary roads that might lead into the main road where you're filming that you need to block to make the place safe. And you also bring with you the car prep van with all the tools required in case something happened. They need cleaning, they need to change a wheel or whatever. And basically you need sometimes with you the camera truck in case they want to change lens, in case they want to put some filtering, in case they want to do something with the camera. And that's basically the small unit you transfer from one place to the other when you're filming in, let's say, in a country road. When you're in a city, it's a different thing. You stay, for instance, a couple of hours in one street, you block it with the police, you do the shot with the armed car, and then you move the whole base camp to another street, which maybe is 30 minutes driving. Obviously, everything is super time consuming because moving one place for the other, it might take you, let's say, 20 to 30 minutes to wrap one location, then 30 more minutes driving, and then let's say between 30 minutes or 45 minutes to be ready for the first shot. So everything it's normally people when you see people that they see you filming in the street, they get amazed of how bored that is because they all imagine, film industry, that's super cool filming stuff, but they didn't see that. They get to see the reality of things take a lot of time to set and prep and be ready, and that's where it is basically. It's not like super quick. Things take time basically.
So taking the example with Mark Jenkinson that you guys did together with the Peugeot 308, drawn by Attraction, it's called. How long did that one take?
It was a 3 days, if I can recall, it was a 3-day shoot. We spent 3 days shooting this commercial, yeah.
Cool. And then when you're on set, do you communicate with like Mark, or you kind of communicating with everybody, like all the different crew? You're the one with like you kind of yelling out and stuff. The first AD's kind of the vocal person yelling around to everyone.
We are the one who has the spotlight basically, and the one who do the yelling, the one who communicates basically. I normally I speak to in that case I had Mark Jenkinson directing and Ottar Gunnarsson as DP. And what I do with them is that we talk about the shot. There's a lot of work done prior to the set, to when you're on set. There's a lot of work, pre-production, scouting. You do a lot of work prior to when you're on set. But when you're on set, when I'm on set, I talk to them. They know already because they had a schedule done by me that I've already checked with them that works. And when we are moving on to the next shot, I remind them, so we're going to do that shot, as we said, and this is a shot that the Peugeot is coming through towards us. We are following him. We're following the car with dolly tracks. We have some smoke and we have some wet down. And the car is moving and the camera, we pan as the little camera just goes on the street. Yeah, let's put that up. Basically, the DP start. Basically, that's me and the DP working. Mark, the director, in that time of setting up the shot, he's there with us. But basically, who are more putting everything together it's me with the departments, with lighting department, with grips department, art department. Everyone, and the locations department are putting the shot up. I just basically setting up everything that requires that specific shot that we're doing. When the camera is up, basically that means when the dolly tracks are set, when the camera it's on the dolly, I would call Mark and say, "Hey, Mark, camera's up. Have a look. Tell us what you think." So basically, we do a quick rehearsal with a car. Very rough because we're still working on the shot. We rehearse it, and if we're in the right track, probably we just fine tune everything. I will call the actor or whatever, and then we are pretty much ready to film.
And then there's a lot of like visual effects in there with like the camera jumping around and stuff. Is that hard to kind of wrap your head around? Like or do you have like a little ball and a stick? Like how did you do those kind of shots?
We had a toy camera, basically a mock-up of the camera that will be probably it was the same size and obviously texture and color were not the same, but it was the same size. And basically every time we did a take, the very first take was with this toy camera. If the camera was moving, basically it was Mark. And Mark Jenkinson, I mean, as you know, Mark Jenkinson, he loves doing stuff by himself. And I totally love that because he's very participant in the design of the shot. And he was actually moving the camera in the street. For instance, I remember one take that it was the arm car chasing the camera, and there was there was people crossing in the street. That eventually one of the pedestrians was hitting the camera with foot. And basically the very first take we did, Mark was running with the camera in front of the arm car, running like ducking and running with the camera on the floor, and basically the arm car was chasing him and the camera and getting into this extra that was kicking the camera. So basically that was with the intention to, the first place, help post-production, but most importantly, to make us understand, all of us in the crew, what was a shot. Because obviously when you're shooting with a CG element, is you have to imagine the element because the element is not there. But the fact of having the toy camera and animating the toy camera himself, doing it help us to the stunts, to the arm cam driver, to the camera creator, everyone to know what we were doing, and that was very helpful to understand what was the shot about. And yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, that sounds fun. So basically, if there's like, not particularly this shoot, but on any other shoots, if there's like, you've scheduled an hour to do a shot, and then the director or the DP or whoever's kind of taking their time and it's kind of going over schedule, how do you like approach the conversation with like, we got to move to the next shot? Like, how does that go?
It depends the approach. It depends how the director is. I mean, there's a lot of psychological work in my job, which is reading how the people is and how the people are, basically how the director is. They're directors. I mean, I work with tons of directors, and the directors that sometimes take it in the wrong way when I say, listen, Weber, we're late, we should move. And there are directors that totally are understanding what I'm saying, because they know what my job is, and I'm there basically to help. And normally the way I tell them normally is listen, I let them know that we're late, because first thing is you need to let them know that we're late. I mean, it's something that I think a director should be aware that we're late, and because it's not on me that we're late. It's basically, and sometimes not on him as well, but he's a very important part of the shoot that he has to know, basically, if something is going wrong or something or we're late. And normally I would say, listen, Mark, we're behind 20 minutes. Mark is a very understanding guy. He understands perfectly, and he's very on top of the schedule. Some directors are not, but Mark is a director that, first of all, when he arrives on set, aside of saying good morning to everyone, because he's a lovely guy, he asks for a schedule, and he basically refreshes the day. I walk him through the day, and so he's constantly has the schedule in his pocket, which normally directors don't have it, but he's watching looking at the schedule. So normally you don't have to remind him that we're late. But that's Mark Jenkinson. There are other directors that they live in their own world, creative world, that they're immersed on their world, and they're not aware of the time passing, and that's why they have me. I have to tell them, listen, we're 30 behind, or we should move. If they insist that they want to continue the shot, because obviously if we should move but they don't have the shot, normally we don't move until we get the shot, or we get into a stage that it's a decent enough to move on. Ultimately, it's not only about the director to move on in commercials. It's also about agency and client. They have the final green light to move shot or not. I let the producers know that we're late in sometimes. Okay, listen, we are late. We because producers' work sometimes is to be with the agency and the client, and they communicate because I told them, listen, tell them we're late. Basically, I think if you involve all the people in the same boat, listen, we're late, and I'm not just saying because we're late. It's because everything has been planned, and if we're late now, 30 minutes, and it's 11 in the morning, by the time it's 7 p.m., if we don't catch up, we will be dragging more time, and we will start to be losing shots at the end of the day, which is something that no one wants. We want to get the day. We want to accomplish the day. My job is a constant reschedule all the time, basically on the delays that we might have. See how can be more efficient. See how can we grab some minutes that we've been delaying. How can we make that up or fix it, and we can gain some time to get the final shot of the day done. So that's the magic of it. I mean, it's basically my job. In my job, you're never in your, let's say, your comfort zone. You're always away from your comfort zone because you're behind schedule. Normally, that's normal. Being on time or being ahead of schedule is really strange. But sometimes it happens. It's great. It's you're a different person. You're relaxed. But the normal mode is you're slightly behind or far behind, and you're pushing the crew. Not yelling because if you're yelling constantly, people start not listening. When you yell all the time, when you have this tone that you're there, yelling all the time, it becomes useless. It has no use being yelling all the time. If your tone is like this all the time, and in a very specific moment, you just raise your tone. Listen, and it has to be done now. Everyone gets your attention, and it's something that stands out from the rest of the tone, and that's helpful. That's a tool, basically, the tone of your voice.
If everything's running behind, you kind of like at a heightened level of like awareness, and that like every minute counts. But if you're like relaxed, you kind of let the time go, and then you kind of jump back into like. So how do you have like certain tools that keep you aware of time? Like, do you have a watch, or do you have like an iPad, or do you use like pen and paper? Like, how do you keep yourself aware of like where you're at throughout the day?
The way I normally function is, obviously I have a watch, which is my best friend in a shoot, the watch, and I have my print copy of the schedule. I'm still a paper guy, at least when I'm on set. My go for a wallet, which I put my papers in my back pocket. The shooting schedule is the front page that I have, and I also have a copy of the call sheet. Normally I have a spare copy of the shooting boards in case the director wants to see the continuity, because sometimes it's useful. Schedule is rarely the order of the editing. Normally it's everything is planned in the most efficient way, which normally is not the way that will be, obviously, the commercial will be edited. Having a copy of the continuity of the edit, of the montage, it's very useful sometimes for the director. Normally to keep track of the time, I have my copy of the schedule and my watch. But to be honest, I'm not all the time looking at the schedule, because since I've done the schedule, I've overthink about the schedule through the days before. I know my schedule super well, so I know that this shot, and I have to be done or out by 10. I have 20 more minutes set up for the next one, and until 11:45 I need to be out, or 10:45 I need to be out of the next shot. So basically, I just watch it every once in a while, but pretty much everything is in my head normally.
And do you think like you operate like in minutes or seconds, or like 10 minutes increments? Like, how often are you like looking at the watch?
It depends. If we're very late, I watch my watch very often, like trying to stop the time or to decrease the time speed. The most brutal schedule that I do normally is when I shoot with athletes, or I used to be when Lionel Messi, the soccer player, was playing in Barcelona. I used to shoot most of his commercials. and I shot with him more than 50 times throughout my career. With this guy, you have to be literally on the minute. It's literally on the minute, and you count 5 minutes for one shot, 3 minutes to move on, 5 more minutes for the next shot, 10 minutes if it's a very complicated shot. But you can hit these times only because you have one day rehearsing with doubles. You've been rehearsing with doubles with the camera crew, and everyone is basically it's you shoot it at the normal speed on the rehearsal day without Messi, but with a double, you tape everything on the floor, camera position, distance with the actor, with the athlete, lens that you're using, number of the shot, and you end up with a studio full of gaffer tapes with numbers, colors, and directions, and heights, and lenses. And then this is the only way that you're able to move like at light speed. You literally move, and you can accomplish 20 shots in 2 hours, which is absolutely crazy. Normally, you would accomplish in one day, normal day, 15 shots. With Lionel Messi, you get 20 in 2 hours because he only gives you 5 hours on paper. Normally, you never have him 4 hours. You have him less time because he's not very comfortable on sets. And so basically, my job is to make sure that everyone works and runs like a devil. Everyone knows exactly what's happening, and everyone knows exactly what's coming next. And that's my job. Just basically, you plan one day rehearsing every single shot. Then the very early morning of the day that he's coming, you do a quick run through, which is basically you get all the crew with the cameras, with a double, and you basically you shoot every shot one take, and you keep moving positions. Okay, shot number 3 is the first one. Camera's here, the actor is there. Do one take. Okay, let's move on. And you get this muscle memory to the crew to remember and to study and digest what's going to be happening when Lionel Messi arrives. And that's the only way when he arrives, you really move incredibly quick. And you got the adrenaline at this level because he basically hates waiting. I say Messi, but also Cristiano Ronaldo or Jason Tatum. These superstars, they hate waiting, and they're there for a very short period of time. And when they're there, everyone has to be super focused and concentrated and get the most out of them. And that's the only way. When you rehearse and when you do this run through, and everyone gets this muscle memory of what's happening, and that's the way you do it basically. But that's when you shoot with athletes and these kind of people that they're in there for a very limited time.
Right. Yeah. So you mentioned that you shot like 50 commercials with Messi. How did you get to that position? And is it because he wanted you to be there, or is it like the producers or his management kind of see that already have like a good communication, and it's, I guess, less risk to throw in a new AD that might not know the way that he likes to work? And I guess, how do you communicate with someone like that in terms of like a celebrity and, they could, be very sensitive? Like, how do you kind of talk to them in a way that they're going to understand like the filmmaking process?
All the ADs in Barcelona have shot with Messi at some stage, because that guy used to shoot like 2 or 3 commercials a month. So basically, eventually, if you're an AD, you're going to be filming with Messi at that time. And that's how I started. I shot a couple of times, and obviously, being a guy from Barcelona like myself, I love the FCB, which is the football team in Barcelona. And Messi is a super idol. So I deeply respect Messi and I loved him. But when you are on set, you have to be professional, and you don't show him your love or your passion for what he does. You have to be strictly professional. And probably most of the ADs are like that. Are like you're strictly professional, but somehow we develop like good communication with him, with his manager as well, and basically I just made I made the shoots move really fast, and sometimes, well, most of the times, finishing ahead of schedule, which he and his manager love that. I mean, okay, so we're planning for 3 hours, we're finishing in 1 hour 40 minutes. That's great. We want this guy again, and that's basically how I started working with him. Yeah, they basically they pass some requires to the production companies that they're working. We asking for a specific people for certain positions. So for caterers, we want this one. For makeup, we want this person. For ADing, we want Ferran in that case. Obviously, my name was there, but also there were other names that I wasn't the only one. I was for a very long time was the number one name that they tried to go for. But in that case, I wasn't available because I wasn't always available for them. I was probably in another project. So they moved to the second name and everything was perfectly all right. I mean, we have a very capable ADs in Barcelona. But for some reasons, we did a good match with Messi and his manager. And the way, answering the other question, the way I communicate with them is as I said, you try to be as professional as possible. You don't ask him you don't tell him, hey, you were great yesterday in the game. Although he scored three goals, but you don't get these, at least I wasn't getting this type of relation, because that would be something out of the shoot. I was very concentrated and telling him what we need for the shot and explaining what the camera would do. I will probably put the one quick take with the double, so he can see and learn what the double is doing, and then he will be himself repeating the action. And being a guy that he's been playing soccer for so many years, his brain is so well trained in terms of being professional that he's super technical, and you can tell him many things. Okay, so when you get to that point, you're going to look at that cross. Then another there will one guy that will wave you, and that's a cue for you to start running. And then you dribble this guy, that guy that come through, and then you're going to kick the ball and you're going to hit that cross on the goal. And he just nailed it every take because his brain is trained in this specific area, and that's really great working with athletes because they're extremely precise to what they do, and that's why you have to be very specific, very precise, and not vague. And that's what my job was: be very precise on communicating what the director wanted for one specific take. In case of Messi, he also have his chaperone with him that they develop a very unique relation. In this case, they talking about games, movies, and that helped Messi to be to be more relaxed on set.
So the directors might come in and like have kind of a long-winded explanation about their character and maybe their motivations and stuff. Are you there to kind of translate what the director wants to more, like if you talk to the director, do they talk to Messi as well? And then you're kind of like the middleman? Like how does that kind of interaction work?
With Messi is a very unique case. Messi, basically the communication with Messi is either with his chaperone, with his Jordi, is his chaperone for many years, or with myself. We are supposed to be the only two people allowed to speak to him, but obviously the director can say some words to him. I mean, sometimes it's, if we're all speaking Spanish, sometimes it's stupid, the director talking to me. And I repeat the same thing to Messi. And so, but yeah, sometimes the director is not, the director doesn't speak Spanish, and most of the times doesn't speak Spanish. I work with foreign directors. And Messi, his English is all right. I wouldn't say is bad or super good, but he's all right. But normally the director talks to me. He tells me what he needs. And I talk to him, and obviously to Jordi, who is his chaperone as well. And we let him know what we want from the shot. And obviously we've been rehearsing the day before, so we know exactly what the shot is in terms of technicality, in position, in where he stops and where he looks at. But then there comes the acting part that we discover on the day we have with Messi, because the double doesn't act. The double is there just to be a physical object that replaces Messi. But Messi acts, and when he does, we get the directions of acting from the director, and we basically translate or let Messi know what he has to do on the shot.
Then in terms of like communicating to the crew and the staff specifically for like a car commercial, how does that work? Are you like in the camera car yourself, or are you like on the side, or like are you on the radio? Like how does that kind of, if there's like a stunt, like how does that kind of all work?
So the first part of communication when you're shooting stunts, or when you're shooting a car shoot normally, let's say driving. So basically the communication starts the moment you group the people involved in the shot. Let's say the armed car driver, the armed car operator, the DP, the director, obviously, the stunt driver, and the location manager. You involve all these people. And basically, sometimes you have these little toy cars that help a lot to understand the shot. Sometimes it's not necessarily, if it's a normal driving shot. And basically, you group all these people, you do a chat, the director tells us what he needs. And basically, we put everything in motion. Then he relaxes on the arm car. I put the blocks. And normally, if you're shooting with an arm car, in the arm car, there's no space, physical space for an AD to be there. Also, you don't want to be there. There's a lot of chatting inside the arm car. There's a driver talking to the intercoms. They're talking to the arm operator, to the camera operator, focus puller, the stunt driver. The director tells us what he needs, and then we start working on the shot. And I was saying yes. I was saying, as an AD, you don't want to be inside the arm car. First of all, there's no physical space, and second of all, there's a lot of conversation between all these guys. Sometimes frantic conversations with the driver of the arm car. The driver of the arm car is constantly talking to the hero car driver, to the stunt, and at the same time they're talking to the arm operator. And it's basically it might seem chaotic the way they talk, because it's okay, go, get ready, 3, 2, 1, go, okay, break up, reverse, okay, here we go again, boom up, and 3, 2, 1, go. It's something like that. And I know that because normally I'm in the hero car. I try to squeeze myself on the backseat of the hero car. I get a comm for myself so I can be hearing constantly all the conversations that happen inside the arm car. And at the same time, I work with 2 radios. So basically, it's the intercom plus 2 walkie-talkies. One of the walkie-talkies is in my ear, and on channel 1, which I communicate with my second or with the location manager. And at the same time, I have a spare walkie-talkie in channel 3, which is production channel, in case something happen. Or, okay, guys, we need to continue, we extend the time that we're in this location because we haven't get what we need, or this kind of stuff. But this walkie-talkie normally is a very, very low volume, because inside of the hero car, the driver, the stunt driver, has to be very focused and concentrated on what it's being told. and set on the arm car. That's why I have one radio in my ear and the intercom on my other ear. So basically, I try to be as much silent as possible on the hero car because it's all about being precise and technical, and basically my voice shouldn't step unless it's very necessary, like reminding everyone, hey, listen, we're late, we should move in the next 5 minutes, we should get that done, or we're jeopardizing another location. This kind of world. Oh, the police is asking me to release traffic, we need to pull over for a sec. This kind of work, this kind of things is what I'm saying when we're shooting car stuff.
And then I'm just looking at one of the commercials. It's called Audi Easy Rider by Bruce St. Clair, and it has like the cars on the side. Like, well, is that like practically done, or is that like visual effects? Like, how did you do that?
So yeah, we have a combination of prepped cars already Dutch with a structure, with a third wheel that had the cars driving twisted in these inclinations. Basically, you could have the actor or the stunt performing their thing while the car was normally driving with a stunt on the wheel, on the steer wheel. However, sometimes we had it for real. We had these incredibly stunts that can literally do some twists with the car. They do like this, da, 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 and all of a sudden they do like a quick move, and the car was tipping and holding the precise equilibrium. So basically, the car was driving this way, and then on the passenger seat they had the stunt performer that will go out of the window and stood there like this. It was incredible because most of us was the first time we were seeing these things with our own eyes just happening in front of the camera. So it was kind of magical. It was a beautiful, very beautiful commercial to shoot, and which was very, very abstract with the smoke, pink smoke, and people on the cars just having a coffee on the bonnet. It was really, really different car commercial. That's basically what an AD love, and just shooting different car commercials, because like Mark Jenkins commercial is a different car commercials. It's something that involves a little camera being chased all over the city, and that's really fun because shooting a guy coming out from this room, from this house, getting into the car, driving a little bit in the city, and finishing driving on the countryside. You've done that a million times, but when these rare commercial happen in front of your eyes, that you have these unique scenes, that's what fulfills you, basically. That really excites you as an AD. Just shooting different stuff, different things that you haven't done before. That's what's really fun.
Yeah, and I think like that's part of like car commercials. It's always been done before, and it's like, how do you bring something new, something memorable that people are gonna watch and like remember, like stick in their mind. So whenever you can have like a special stunt or like some kind of character involved, I think that will help move the story forward and make people really remember that commercial as something that was not only good to work on, but when people watch it themselves, they want to share it with their friends and family.
There are some times that basically the commercial is more than a car commercial. It transcends what it is purely driving stuff, and just but you need a good story. Normally you need a good story behind. Like for instance, Mark Jenkins, it's a story. It's a very cinematic story in terms of there's a camera that sees something great that let the camera go himself, and the camera starts chasing the car through all the city, and that's something that it's a story behind the images, in opposed to when you're shooting just purely aesthetic shot of the car, which is something that it's nice, but it's not so I don't want to sound in the wrong way, but I wouldn't say boring, but it's not as exciting as when you're shooting a story. I mean, when you got something behind, or maybe you're not shooting a story, but you're shooting something very different, very unique, very special. Like when we were shooting the guys being on top of the cars, and with the car sideways, that was really different, and that was very special for all of us. And when you do things like that, is something that really motivates you and makes you remember the shoot that you just did, and reminds in your memory. That's a good part of it.
So yeah, so speaking of like memorable commercials, like I'm just looking at the one, it's called Volkswagen Laughing Horses, and it has all the horses laughing. What was that experience like? Does the face CGI and you had to like wrangle horses, and like how did that shoot go?
So it went well. It was Bart Timmer. Bart Timmer was directing this commercial. It was a few years ago, and basically the commercial was about. I mean, again, there's a story behind it. This guy that has this horse trailer trying to park in reverse next to the fences where all these horses were there. And the story behind it is the guy, I mean, whoever has drawn a trailer know how complicated it is going reverse. I don't myself, and I used to have a caravan, so going reverse is not an easy thing. It has to, you have to learn a lot to know the physics of it. And basically the commercial was about it. It was a guy who was trying to park in reverse, and it was a mess. So basically the horses were laughing at him. And then there was this other guy coming with a Volkswagen Tiguan, and what this Volkswagen has this little notch this little thing that basically move the car accordingly to where you're putting the trailer, so everything is done by the computer of the car, and the car was parking perfectly, and that was the story behind. And yeah, we had these horses basically with the wranglers. We were rehearsing with the horses, seeing the horses the days before, and the horses, they're kind of tickling the horses with a stick, which they were pushing some part of between the stomach and the leg, and it was, I guess, it was a part that was like a tickling the horse, and the horse was basically opening the mouth in a funny way. And I think post-production helped sometimes, but most of it are the horses really, I wouldn't say laugh, or maybe they were laughing, but they were basically the horses moving the mouth themselves, and that was really fun because we all laughed when we were seeing that on camera. The crew was laughing themselves, seeing the horses actually kind of laughing because with the camera angles, it completely looked like they were laughing at the car just being messy.
Yeah, it looks kind of hilarious. So how do you keep professional during that time? Like, are you kind of laughing the whole time, or do you kind of have to snap back into like, okay, I got to make sure that this shoot runs well?
Basically, I don't have the luxury to, I wouldn't say to laugh, or I obviously laugh and I obviously have very good time, but above all, I have to keep track of what's happening and make sure everything functions in the proper way. And that means that you have to be extremely focused all the time. I mean, I'm a different person when I work in my real life. In my real life, I can be more playful, cheerful, whatever. When I'm working, I'm in a work mode. So basically, that means that I'm getting paid to make sure that everyone works in the one direction and everything functions how is it planned to be functioning. So that's why I enjoy the shoots and I have a good fun. I think that's important, that I have fun. But above all, I have to be focused and be very mindful of what's happening, what has to be happening next, what has to be prepped while we're filming that scene. Something has to be prepped in order to, when we jump from one shot to the other, this next thing is ready to go, or 90% ready to go. And if you're distracted, if you are enjoying it's super fun, everything is great, then you lose track of what has to be done. And that's why I'm not allowing myself just to be relaxed. I have to be focused, basically. As an AD, I speaking to myself, but any good AD has to be focused if they do want to keep track of what's happening all the time.
Because I can see that a shoot like that could kind of get carried away with like the animals like not working. I'm sure there was some kind of test done beforehand to make sure that the laughing would happen. But was there times where maybe the director or whoever spent too much time on one shot, like trying to get the different laughs, or when the animal wasn't cooperating, or like how do you deal with those situations?
With animals, you're subjected to what the animals give you. And if the animal doesn't want to do something, the animal won't do it. No matter what, the animal won't do that. Although you've been rehearsing, or the animal has been trained for that. If the animal on the day doesn't want to do that, he won't do it. It basically is what it is. And then is when post-production can help just to animate some mouth or some laughs. But in that particular shoot, I don't remember Bart spending more time that we were allowing. It was a shoot that it was demanding in terms of the amount of shots. But as an AD, if you normally count like 30 minutes for one shot, with animals, you have to take this into account, and you basically count more time in case something happened, because you move in a very uncertain territory when you're doing schedule sometimes, and you have to take guesses. Okay, so I think that normally would take us maybe 20 minutes, so I'm going to schedule 30 minutes. That would normally take us, 1 hour. Let's schedule 1 hour 30. Sometimes this is the first approach. Then when you finish the schedule, you see that the schedule that should be 12 hours is 16 and a half hours. So then you start cutting it down. Okay, where can I cut minutes? Where can I compress? When I compress the schedule as much as I could, then I went to the director, producer, I sit them together and we talk about what we have in front of my schedule. And sometimes the director will tell me, oh no, listen, that you schedule 30 minutes, we can get it in 10. But that's his vision. He's normally, I'm not saying all of the directors, but normally the director, he thinks that he can get most of the things with very less time that you have scheduled. But obviously I'm taking into account so many factors that he's not taking into account. To shoot this, I will have 10 minutes to position the police, explaining the shot and letting them know what we're doing, and 5 more minutes to put the blockers, and just 10 minutes because I have to change the rims from one car to the other, because the good rims of the cars we have 2 good rims of the car. So basically, if you want to shoot the car in this angle, when you flip the angle of the car, I have to change the rims into this other side. So basically, all these things matter when you're building up a schedule, and that's the beauty of it. It's a big puzzle, but you have to take into account so many factors that condition or that dictate to you the best way to go to be as efficient as possible, right? Sometimes you want to shoot a shot with a crane, and there's another shot with a crane that it's, maybe it's 500 meters down the road, which is not part. But what you do, you don't put these 2 shots together, because when you're done with the first shot crane, moving the crane down 500 meters or 300 meters is going to take you maybe 20 minutes. So you put a shot in between something that it's not happening there, something that's happening maybe in one side of the street, you put that shot to give time to the grips to move the crane to the next position. So when you're finishing what you're doing, the crane and the camera are already in the second position, so you can jump forward and quicker. So that's basically my job is to make these combinations in basically trying to avoid dead times in the shoot. So basically that's essentially what a good schedule is basically it's a schedule that it keeps people moving all the time, getting shots done, ticking, okay, done. That's the beauty of my work. Just seeing how can it be, okay, if we do that in the meantime, would that be better if we do some of the thing instead? Or listen, oh yeah, but the other department needs more time, so let's give him some more time by doing that thing. So that's the thinking involved in designing a schedule, and that's the creative part that I put in my schedule, because I think finding the most efficient way, it could be creative sometimes, because sometimes you have to tell the director, what if we shoot in this with the dolly? What do you think if we shoot in this from the crane? That will save me time to put in the camera from the crane, which is already there, instead of putting into the dolly. If we shoot that with the very same crane, we're saving some good minutes. And that's a creative part that I like to bring to the film. In terms of, it's not creative on the screen, but it's creative in a sense that I give more time to the director to accomplish more things.
I think something like that could be like a conflict sometimes when the director has a vision and then you kind of offering a solution in terms of time. Like you could say, like, how do you navigate that potential conflict if they're like, oh, I want to shoot this on a crane, but you're kind of like, we don't have time for that. Like, how do you communicate them without them kind of feeling like you're taking something away from them? Like you're offering them a solution, say, instead of the crane, like, let's put it on the dolly, or let's put it on a Steadicam, or like some kind of solution that they're not losing their like creative vision, and you're offering a solution.
Most of the times, this work gets done in the office when you're building the schedule. Basically, you do the tech recce or location scout with the director and the head of departments. Director talks about what he wants to do. I take notes with my iPad or with everything, and put everything down on a paper, basically on my iPad, and then I get to the office and I start working on the schedule. Then is when I see some little conflicts that might affect the way the director wants to shoot it, or the time. Basically, most of the issues I can see, they're related in the time. In the time zone, it's like, okay, so we do that, we're going to be running out of time, or we're going to run out of daylight. So how can we be more efficient? What if we group these shots, or combine these shots? Then when I done this for myself, I digest, I study, I make combinations, I see what's better. Then I sit down with the director and DP and the producers. I call for what is called a schedule meeting, and production designer obviously as well. So we all sit down together, and I expose, and I basically I walk them through the schedule. And funny thing is basically when I put everything down on a paper, I've chosen already one way to go, which I think this is the best way to go, which will get us more time to get what he wants. Sometimes it's not the best way for him because of her, because they want to shoot this in another way, or they want to get that high distance from a window, but I only have one camera, and the camera is on a dolly or is on the arm car. So if we want to get this extra shot, it's either we get another extra camera body, or basically we have it, or we shoot it in the beginning of the day, because when the camera is on the arm car, it should stay as much longer as we can. We cannot be rigging the camera and put it back in, put it back out. It's time consuming. So basically you involve all the departments that they can basically rearrange according to what I'm saying. So if I say, for instance, if we want to get the vista shot, we should get an extra body because we're in driving modes all the day. That shouldn't, or you get me an extra body, camera body, and that is something I ask to the producers with the director and the DP in front, obviously, or we shoot it either at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day. It cannot be shot. The DP was asking me to shoot this shot, for instance, at 3 p.m. for lighting reasons, but it can be done at that time because that time completely breaks the block of the arm car. So we have to make compromises. All the departments have to make compromises because to get the best out of it. Sometimes it's a light compromise. Okay, so we're going to shoot it at the beginning of the day, and then we stay on the arm car because we won't have one camera. Okay, makes sense. Or the producer will say, okay, I have the extra money to get a spare camera body, so we can be filming with the arm car. Get that camera ready on the apartment at 3 p.m. So basically at 2:30, I give a break to the arm car. I get the director and DP on the top window, and we quickly shoot with the second camera. We shoot the passing by the car, for instance. But these are all compromises that we all have to adapt. If no one, let's say, if no one gives his part, we're not going to get that. I don't know if I'm explaining that myself, but basically, there are all the departments have to make compromises. Either producers getting the money for extra money for the camera, or the DP just accepting that he cannot get the best light to shoot that shot from the window. It has to be done either at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, because otherwise it's extremely inefficient. Or the director basically just saying, okay, just forget it. We're not going to shoot the shot. We concentrate in drivings. So that's, but basically getting to the question you were making, how do we approach that is basically, I communicate that in advance to all the head of departments, all the people involved that can do things about it, and say, listen, how can we make it? Because if we want to make it, I give solutions, but it might not be the best for lighting. It might not be the best for producers because it involves money, or it cannot be the best for the director who's losing a shot. So we have these three options. Which one should we go for? And ultimately, it's not my call deciding which one way to go. It's the directors and the producers deciding which is the way to go. I just make sure I'll give them all the information and all the options, so they know if they go that way, we're gonna be losing that, or if we don't go that way, we're gonna be winning that. So that's basically my job.
Right, and you mentioned it's kind of like a psychological thing where you go to them and you have a meeting initially, and you find out like their kind of goal and like what shots that they have in their head that they can't miss. So if they're taking too long on a certain shot, do you kind of like mention, oh, like we're going to run out of time for that like shot at the end that you want to get? Like, is that kind of part of how you kind of negotiate with them, that if they're spending too much time on one thing, they're going to lose out on another? Normally
when we're starting a shot or we're about to shoot, I remind the director, say, listen, so we need to be out of this. I normally say, as a friendly reminder, Brian or whoever, as a friendly reminder, we need to be out of this shot in 45 minutes. So they were, that's plenty of time. But these 45 minutes just fly through super quick because things take time. And if it's a easy director, let's call it easy. Like if it's an easy director, I will give him like 10 minutes warning before these 45 minutes. I will say, listen, we should move in 10 minutes. Okay, that's fine. That's right too. If he says more time, if he goes over that 45 minutes, I will say, hey, listen, we're running late. We should move on as soon as you can. And obviously, because I'm super involved in the shot, I know that what I'm asking is tough for a director because I know when the shot is done or not. I mean, from my experience, I know if the shot is in the fourth take, we have the shot and the director wants to keep going. I know that he's chasing or she's aiming for this extra little thing that he might get out of the shot. But essentially, worst comes to worst, the shot, we have it. So I know when I can push more, or maybe we're totally off and we're not having the shot at all. Maybe the actor is not performing well, or the cat is not looking at the spot, or so I know that asking a director to move on without having the shot at all is an awful thing to ask. But at least I let him know, listen, I know that we don't have a shot, but we should be planning ahead because we're going to need more time, because we still have to shoot the other cat, move location, and shoot 5 shots with kids, and that will take time for sure. So basically, I'm make the director be part of the problem, because ultimately, because he's shooting the spot and he needs to know that we're late, or what implies not moving. And obviously I know that we cannot move until we don't have the shot, but I want the director to be aware that by not moving we are jeopardizing something else, or he will have to run a lot in the next scenes. And I think it's part of my job, letting the guys know that we will face that problems later. A very common mistake when you're a rookie AD is keeping the things for yourself and not letting the director know, because sometimes the directors, if you're suffering because you're late, you're 30 minutes late in one shot, and then you're 45 minutes, then you're 1 hour late, and we're still on the same shot. We're 1 hour and 30 minutes late, and you tell the director, listen, finally you get your courage and you tell him, hey, listen, we are 1 hour and a half late. He will talk to you, say, what? To 1 hour and a half? Why didn't you tell me before? And that obviously that has happened to me, and that has happened to all of the ADs in the world. That's your beginnings. That when you're very nervous to tell a bad news, but it's part of my job to let them know when something is wrong, and with time you know and you learn that the sooner you do that, the better. I mean, if you need to drop a bomb, you need to drop it as soon as possible, because if you drop the bomb too late, maybe it's going to be too late to fix that problem. And that's part of the psychological part involved in your thinking. Okay, sometimes you know that it's not the right time to tell the director, listen, that shot that we're doing later, we should shoot it maybe not like this, maybe shoot like that, because maybe in that moment the director is super stressed because he's not getting the shot. So you need to know when it's a good moment to throw some important questions, right? Or I don't know, your second AD comes to you and says, hey, listen, we need to pick the extras for the next day. Or the director needs to select the water fitting that is being carried on while we're filming. We are fitting some actors for the next day, and the director, your second AD, comes with his iPad and all the photos of different outfits. So the director needs to select one, and you know exactly when it's a good time to do that. With the director. So listen, it's an awful time. Let's not do it now. Let's wait for when he's more relaxed. Yeah, I'll bring you in. Or the same with the question, when I'll know when it's a good time to throw a question to the director, when he's super stressed, or when he's more relaxed, more calm, when it's a moment to throw that question. Because you're going to get more positive results depending on when you're doing this question.
It sounds like it's a very high stress environment when a director is like trying to do something and you're kind of like seen as like the bad guy that's kind of telling him, oh, you got to move on. Like, how do you deal with like if a director kind of like snaps and yells at you, or the tension's high? You mentioned early on in your career you kind of left things too late, and it's like everything's about timing, like when you should mention something, when you shouldn't mention something. So that can only be learned over like experience. But I'm sure working with new directors, you kind of don't really know when or where, but I guess it's up to you to develop your own style and figure out what works for yourself. So yeah, what about some advice for someone who wants to be a first AD? like what should they be thinking of when they're like getting yelled at? Like, how do you deal with that? You got to have like a thick kind of skin.
Absolutely. You need to, throughout the years, I have developed a very thick skin, and you need to. First thing you need to know is a director is normally is very stressed when he's working and when he's filming, and all his weeks of preparation of prepping, reading treatments, just thinking about the shots, everything condenses in these 3 days that he's working, he's filming. So he has a lot of pressure from the agency, from the client, from the production company that has put a lot of money, and he has a lot of stress. And obviously, and you're there to help him. You're like a necessary evil. Directors sometimes they don't like the figure of an AD by himself because they're the police guys that tell you, listen, you need to move. But they know that they're helpful. So it's pretty much like the police. Okay, you don't like them, but you know that they're useful. So basically, you let them. If you're a new AD, first thing I would recommend is choose the projects that you see yourself being able to do it. Because one common mistake, and that's because there's a lot of work, at least in Barcelona and in Spain. Producers push you as if they see you as a rookie and you're good, you're doing great jobs. They push you to get bigger jobs and bigger and bigger and bigger. And my job is you only progress and you only get better through experience. And with that, you need to be very careful when you select your jobs that you're working in. You don't want to be in a great big job if you're not ready for this. I mean, that's the worst thing that can happen. And obviously through all my years, I tried to be very specific, selecting the jobs I thought that was able to do. Obviously, sometimes I made mistakes, and all of a sudden I was in the middle of the shoot saying, "Fuck, that's extremely complicated. How can I do it?" And funny thing is, kind of now I'm chasing for these moments, the challenging moments. That's what I'm looking for now, because through all my years of experience, I want to face things that really challenging things that really make my brains just think and how can it be done, and then set up some very big scenes. That's what ADs want. But when you're a rookie, you want the opposite. You need very easy parts, so you get more confidence. You do the learning in a more progressive way, because obviously you can learn by hitting your face against big jobs and just making so many mistakes. Obviously, there's a way to learn like this, but at least you want to learn doing the less mistakes possible. And so first thing I would recommend is don't run. Basically, there's a saying there's a saying in Morocco that says that hurry will kill you. So rush will kill you. But so basically, just step by step, be very conscious about where you are in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills, and pick the right projects. And then director, you have to see him not as a god. I mean, he's a person like you, and he's working like you, and you need to make him participating of what's happening. And obviously, you keep things for yourself, but the big picture is if something might go wrong, you have to let him know, hey, listen, if we go that way, something might go wrong. Or if he's pushing the boundaries too much in terms of stunts, listen, me as an AD, I'm gonna go until that. I'm not gonna go there because it's too dangerous. We're risking people and we're working. We're not saving lives in here. We're not doctors trying to save a life. So we're working in a commercial. We're gonna take risk zero to get that done. I mean, I'm not taking any risk because it's pointless. and sometimes the director get along with what he's doing, and your job is to bring him back, bring him down. Hey, listen, this is too dangerous, too risky. Let's not go this way. Let's go that way. And that would be my recommendation for rookie ADs, basically.
You don't want to get thrown into the deep end of a pool because then you'll drown. So that's kind of like the analogy that people use, like, God, just get thrown in the deep end. But for this particular job, you want to be going on the smaller jobs maybe and making those mistakes, because I'm sure there's a bunch of mistakes that are inevitable that you can't really avoid. And I'm sure you could kind of touch on a few things, but it's only until you are there experiencing it yourself that you realize what you've done wrong and maybe, upset the wrong person. And if you're doing it on a big job, you upset, a celebrity, or upset a big director or producer. It's kind of like, I'm sure there's a blacklist in Barcelona where they just don't hire this guy again. So there must be a way that you can kind of, there's no real career path though, is there? It's kind of like, where do I go? Like, maybe I start off with a few music videos and find directors. I guess it's like a personal experience where you'll be able to make friends and network within the filmmaking community of where you're from, and get a few directors on board with you that will continually hire you. Is that kind of how it worked out for you? Like early on, were you working with the same directors, same kind of producers throughout?
Yes, basically, when you're beginning, you're the new guy. But obviously, if you put all your soul on your work, they realize, they can see perfectly that you're putting everything that you have, and sometimes it won't get you to the bad results because you're very young. But sometimes producers and directors see the potential that you have, and these little mistakes, they become more forgivable. So basically, they hire you for the next one because basically it's all about chemistry between people. Our work, and if you develop a good relation with producers and directors, and you should, because it's a tough job. So you need to be at least communicating. You need to create the best friendly environment possible, and that's your contribution as well to everything being in the best possible mood. Producers and directors like that, and they hire you for the next one, and all of a sudden a production company just discover you, and they like you because you're production friendly. You're not only defending director's vision no matter what, you're putting everything on the table and being realistic in terms of everything. So how to explain that? You're not marrying the director and just throwing to the garbage the production company. You're making everything one team together. And when they see that, when you see ADs doing that, they really appreciate, because they see a guy who's professional, who's defending the director's vision, but he's always conscious about what production can offer and can give you based on money, time, locations, whatever. And then they become calling you, and they call you more and more and more. And then basically you start knowing directors they come from UK, the US, Germany. They come to Barcelona to shoot with you, and they like you, or they like me. In that case, they like me. And when they get back to Spain, they call me in case they're shooting in Madrid. Okay, we're going to call you. We're going to call Ferran anyway because we worked with him, and it worked super well. So let's have him, because AD is a very key position in a shoot. Is very important to make everything functioning in a smooth way, and basically when you know these guys from before, it's you have a lot of you have a certain trust and a certain degree of trust that everything will be fine because we have him, and he lead us. He took us before in the last shoot in a very good direction. So let's have him again, and that's how I was starting to get to know directors and producers. And with the time and time, I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years. So basically, with the time, I get to know directors from all over the world, and now I can work. I got calls to work in UK, in Germany, in South Africa, in Chile, because I've known these directors, or production companies know my name, or directors have given my name to that other director. Okay, so if you're shooting in France, get Ferran, because I loved him and he worked super well with me. So try to get him, because he will work super good for you. And that's how you build up your network, by trying to do the less mistakes in your career. So since I said before, you'll learn this by doing what you do. You try to be as more careful as possible and thinkful of what have I done today, what can be better. And the beauty of it is a constant way of learning and working based on what you've done and how can you do it better. And that's how you commit less mistakes, and that's how you get better, and that's how you get more calls, because you are more solid AD that commits no mistakes, or yeah, basically that's what that is. The less mistakes you do, or the more smooth you conduct a shoot, the better you are, and the better erase the mistakes you do, because it's not the less mistakes you do. Basically, it's I would rephrase it. The more smooth you run the show, the better. You have to run it as smooth as possible. So that's the aim for an AD.
Humor kind of plays a part. Like you got to know when to make jokes or when not to make jokes. Like if there's like you want to keep the spirits high of the crew, I'm sure there's times when you can have some fun laughs, but if you're making a joke at the wrong time, like you're going to upset the wrong people, I'm sure.
I mean, jokes are good sometimes to keep the spirit up and to basically to keep a friendly environment, because I think my opinion is that with a friendly environment, everyone functions way better than with a tense environment. That's one thing for sure. But obviously, you need to know when you have to throw a joke, and sometimes are really, really bad times to throw a joke. But this is basically, it takes no time to learn when it's a good moment to throw a joke and to make a joke. And if the director is a friend of you, it's easier. If the director is the first time you're working with, it's more difficult. And I wouldn't say make a joke, but what I would mention is to keep this friendly environment, friendly spirit, or optimistic and happy spirit. That basically that's where I am. I mean, I'm still enjoying every shot I do. So, and they see that they obviously see that, because I break my back in every shot, because I love that, and that's a very positive attitude that they can see, and basically I think that's what directors like from me in that case, because I've traveled all over the world, and I have had co-first ADs from, I don't know, if I'm shooting in Chile, a big project, I will have a local first AD. If I'm shooting in Cape Town, I will have local first AD, or whatever. And I see the involvement of these people, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's not the best commitment. Basically, they're there just one more shot, just one more shoot. That's why when a director comes to Barcelona, they hire me, or they hire all the ADs, and they can see the happiness that you have inside, of the joyness that you have inside just doing the shot. They get moved. They like that, and that's what they make you call you again, because they see that you're totally going with it. You're totally going with the director's ambition, and you you're part of the process, and you're fighting to get the job the better possible way, and that's basically how that works.
Yeah, and Mark Jenkinson mentioned that it's important to be friendly and nice and communicate with everybody on set and make it like an environment that you want to be there, rather than, you might be super talented, but if you're like just nasty and mean, then you're probably not going to get hired again. So like you said, creating those relationships with the director, being friendly and nice, that they'll want to rehire you again because they had a good experience.
I mean, the times where the AD was a grumpy, yelling person, these times are getting behind, are getting old times. And it used to be when I started in this job, I knew I used to work with a very grumpy ADs that were yelling all the time, being nasty. And that wasn't a good environment to work, to be honest. I mean, nowadays, I'm talking about the last 10 years or 15 years. Basically, people want to be surrounded with nice people. I think that's what everyone is aiming for. And fortunately, these times where the grumpy AD was yelling to everyone, they're getting behind, and I think everyone prefers a nice person. And if you're going to be running a crew with 120 people, you want everyone, you want to get the best of everyone, and to get the best of everyone is not, you don't do that by yelling, being nasty, being grumpy. You get that by asking things politely, being pushy, because you have to be pushy sometimes. So you need to let them know that we are in a hurry, or we have to do that in 20 minutes instead of the 30 minutes that would be normally done. We have to make it in 20 if we don't want to lose a light. And people will do this extra effort when you're nice. If you're grumpy, they will say, okay, I don't care what this guy's asking. I mean, I'm going to do it in my own pace. I'm going to build up these tracks, relaxing, and just want to do my thing, because this guy is a grumpy guy asking me things super, super unpolitely. However, if you're polite, if you're asking people nicely, if you have a smile on your face when you're being pushy, but you have a smile on your face, you make them participant. You make them understand that okay, let's do this effort. We're a crew. We're one team. Let's make this happen. And that's one of the psychological part of my job, that you need to be as nice as possible to make things, to keep things in motion, and in a good, friendly way.
Like, I'm sure it's a very stressful job. Like, how important is it to you to be healthy? And I'm sure your heart takes a beating every job. Do you eat healthy? Do you exercise? How do you maintain a healthy lifestyle?
I mean, I think it's, as you get older, and I'm 47 already, so I'm getting older. I mean, I'm normally one of the older guys in a shoot, and that's life basically. That's sometimes it is what it is. It's sad. It's like, fuck, I'm not the young guy anymore. I'm getting older and older and older, and now I'm one of the older guys. However, I think that's a good thing, at least in my position, because that translates in experience, that translates in trust, and basically now most of the times I'm working with younger directors than me, and they totally trust you when they see you older, when they see that the AD is older than them. Okay, this guy knows what he's doing. Basically, he's been doing this for all his life, so he knows. And yeah, I'm getting older and older and more experience, and that's good. At the same time, I need to keep in a good shape. I need to eat healthy, because basically I'm I'm 12 hours standing on my feet. I mean, I don't sit down. I'm 80. An 80 shouldn't sit down. If an 80 is sitting down, you're losing everything. Basically, you're basically too relaxed to be even in a simple shoot. You need to be standing. That's the way I was taught. That's my school. You have to be standing there, moving, being active in part of everything what you're doing, and obviously if you need your body to hold you through 12 hours, 10 days in a row, you need to eat healthy and you need to do exercise. And myself, I do a lot of exercise. I have a personal trainer myself that I'm going twice a week, and that's helping me a lot, because it's you can go to the gym 3-4 days, 1 hour every day on your own, and that's one thing. But if you go to a personal trainer 1 hour, 2 days, 1 hour each day, so basically 2 hours a week, it's a super focused exercise that he is doing you. And then in my case, this guy has basically reshaped my body and focused my body in terms of ADing. So he works with a lot of people in the industry, so he knows what I'm doing. That's very important. So he knows that I need to have a strong legs to hold my knees, strong back. So because I have to be standing all the time. So he's working in this direction. He is basically fitting me and training me in that way. And obviously, if you do that, you have to eat accordingly. According to it, you have to eat healthy. You cannot eat shit all the time. And in caterers and caterings, there's a lot of sweets and basically chocolate and this kind of stuff. It's good if you want to take a little something, but above all, you need to be as healthy as possible to keep a good shape.
Yeah, and you see, like, in terms of like longevity, you see these directors like Clint Eastwood and Martin Scorsese and, even Steven Spielberg, like they're into like their older years, but they're still producing great films. Like, I think if you keep your mind active and keep doing the work, you can continue. Like, do you have a goal in mind for the future of like what you want to do and how long you want to do it for?
I've always seen myself ADing all of my life. Let's say until I'm 65, something like that. Because probably not commercials, more movies, because movies is a different pace. At least in Spain, movies, even when you're working with foreign productions, the pace that you do in a movie is different. It's more relaxed. In commercial, it's more like adrenaline, shots, moving, just shooting a lot of stuff. In movies, it's a different thing. There's a lot more planning. You can adjust the energy that you're giving to every day. In commercials, your energy is always, or your adrenaline is like this all the time. With movies, you need to be more thoughtful because it's a long run. It's a very long run. And that's what I'm seeing myself in future, just ADing for movies, which I used to back in the years.
Yeah, so like commercials is more like a sprint, and then the films is more like a marathon.
That's perfectly a way to define it. I mean, a commercial, everything is condensed in 3 days or 5 or 7 days. There's a lot of prep. Very intense preparation in this. If I'm shooting 7 days, probably I had maybe 8-9 days pre-production, but really full on, maybe 13-14 hours prepping every day. And when you shoot, you basically it's like a sprint. You have to be incredibly focused and keeping everything. In a movie is different. I mean, you've been planning the film for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and you can be more relaxed. I mean, don't misunderstand that. I mean, I'm not saying you're more lazy or more you don't care thing. It's basically you can dosify. You can manage your energy in a more efficient way when you're doing a film. It's more like, that these 2 weeks you're going to be in the studio, that's fine. And then you have 1 week that you're going to be filming stunts and in the mountains. So you have to save your energy for when that time comes.
you've been giving some great advice this whole time, but is there any like last thoughts that you could kind of give to somebody who wants to be a first AD, maybe in the film or in the car commercial specifically? Any advice that you can give to somebody who wants to be a first AD?
If I have to give a couple of advices, I would say, first off, don't run. Take your time. Take your time with the projects you pick, because don't rush it to the top. I don't want to be a top first AD in your second year. I mean, it takes a lot of time to get on to the top, and then being to the top, meaning shooting big commercials. It takes time. And the second advice, that it's very linked, it's very connected to this first one, is learn. You be with your mind ready to learn, because you always learn. I always learn. In every commercial, I learn something. And everyone, you can extract learning material. You can extract. You can learn from a grip. You can learn from a DP. You can learn from a prop master. In every day is like a school day, right? And I think that's the magic of it. That every day can surprise you. Every day you will learn something that you can incorporate to your bag of knowledge, to your and then make it better for the next one, or make it smoother in the next one. So I think that's the beauty of it. Just you learn in every shoot, and you have to keep this mentality through all your life. I think that's what keeps you moving and excited for every job.
Yeah, like maintain that inquisitive nature, like find out why things work, how they work, always learning, like never cut yourself off and say, I know everything, because that's when the moment you believe that that's going to be fine, I know everything, that's the moment you're wrong. I mean, you have to be aware, be open, be very carefully looking at things, because you're always learning. You're always learning, and everyone can teach you things that will help you. What's some advice that you can give to like a director or DP in terms of dealing with or communicating with a first AD? Like, what are you there to? You're there to help them, but how can you communicate to them like that?
This guy is there to help you, basically, and no matter what he does, he's doing it in the best way he knows, to help you and to help the project. And yeah, he's keeping track of the time, and don't yell back at him if he tells you that you're late or we're late, because it's for the greater good that he's saying that. It's for not losing shots or not losing something else at the end of the day.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Ferran. That was great, and I'm sure people will learn a lot from like hearing your stories, and I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Rory, for having me, and yeah, hopefully that can help other ADs or whoever watches it, or learn or can teach some of the insights of this film industry.